The night I carried my widowed CEO through the rain, I thought I was only helping an injured woman. I had no idea that when her arms tightened around my shoulders and she whispered, "I've missed this," she wasn't talking about being carried. She was talking about the feeling of being safe with someone again, a feeling she had buried with her husband 2 years earlier. My name is Daniel, and for 3 years I had worked as an executive assistant at one of the most successful companies in the city. My boss, Victoria Hale, was the kind of woman people noticed the moment she entered a room. She was brilliant, disciplined, elegant, and almost impossible to read. As CEO, she could negotiate million-dollar contracts without blinking, but nobody at the office ever saw her laugh. Everyone knew she had been widowed young, but nobody dared mention her late husband. I had always admired her from a distance, not because she was my boss, but because behind her cold professionalism, I could sense a woman carrying an enormous amount of pain. Before we continue, if stories about second chances, kindness, and unexpected love touch your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us bring more stories about second chances and remind people that sometimes one small act of kindness can change an entire life. That evening, the office had emptied after a brutal 12-hour day. Victoria had stayed behind to finish reviewing a merger proposal. I was preparing to leave when I noticed the lights in her office were still on. She had refused to let me stay late, telling me she could handle everything herself. That was Victoria's favorite sentence. She could handle everything herself. Outside, a storm had turned the streets silver. Rain hammered against the glass doors, and thunder rolled over the city. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard a sharp cry behind me. I turned and saw Victoria near the entrance. She had stepped off the curb, her heels slipping on the wet pavement. She caught herself against the railing, but her face immediately tightened with pain. I rushed back. She tried to stand straight, pretending nothing had happened, but when she put weight on her ankle, her knees nearly gave way. She looked embarrassed rather than frightened. She insisted she could walk, but after 2 attempts, it was obvious she couldn't. The storm was getting worse, and the security guard had already gone to the other side of the building. I crouched beside her and told her I was going to carry her inside. She immediately refused. She was my CEO, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. She didn't want to look helpless in front of me. But another flash of lightning illuminated her pale face, and I saw something that wasn't authority in her eyes. It was fear. So I carefully lifted her into my arms. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Rain fell around us as I carried her through the entrance. She was surprisingly light, but the responsibility felt enormous. Her head rested against my shoulder, and I could hear her breathing slowly becoming calmer. When we reached the lobby, she didn't immediately ask me to put her down. Instead, her fingers tightened gently around my jacket. Then she whispered those words. "I've missed this." I froze. She seemed to realize what she had said and immediately looked away. I carefully lowered her onto a sofa and asked if she meant being cared for. She didn't answer at first. Then she looked toward the rain-covered windows and told me that her husband used to carry her whenever she hurt herself. That was the first time she had ever spoken to me about him. She told me that after his death, everyone expected her to be strong. Her family wanted her to continue running the company. Her employees needed a leader. Investors needed confidence. Even her friends eventually stopped asking how she was doing because they assumed she had moved on. But she hadn't. She had simply become better at hiding her loneliness. She admitted that she couldn't remember the last time someone had carried her without wanting something in return. The realization broke something inside me. I had spent years believing Victoria was powerful because she never needed anyone. That night, I understood the truth. Sometimes people become fiercely independent because they once depended on someone who disappeared. I drove her home after the doctor confirmed that her ankle was badly sprained but not fractured. I helped her settle into her living room, brought her ice, medicine, and water, and prepared to leave. But as I reached the door, she quietly asked me not to go yet. She wasn't asking as my boss. She was asking as a lonely woman. I stayed. We talked until midnight. She told me about the man she had lost, the dreams they had shared, and the guilt she carried because she had survived him. I told her about my own struggles, about growing up believing that being useful was the only way to earn a place in someone's life. Something changed that night. Not love. Not yet. It was trust. Over the next several weeks, Victoria's ankle healed, but the distance between us never returned. She started smiling at work. She occasionally joined the staff for lunch. She even laughed during a meeting once, leaving everyone in the room staring at her as if they had witnessed a miracle. But then the rumors began. People noticed how often I was around her. Some employees whispered that I was taking advantage of my position. Others suggested Victoria was using me to replace her husband. Victoria heard everything. One morning, she called me into her office and told me I needed to transfer to another department. I knew immediately why. She was protecting me. But I refused. I told her that if she pushed me away because other people were afraid of what they didn't understand, then she would be making the same mistake she had made for 2 years, letting fear decide her life. Her eyes filled with tears. She admitted she was terrified. She had loved once and lost everything. The thought of opening her heart again felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I told her I wasn't asking her to forget her husband. I wasn't asking her to stop loving the memories they had created. I was simply asking her not to punish the rest of her life because tragedy had stolen part of it. For the first time, Victoria allowed herself to cry in front of me. Months passed. We didn't rush anything. We learned to enjoy ordinary moments, the morning coffee before work, quiet walks after dinner, laughing over burnt toast, and sitting together without needing to fill every silence. One evening, we returned to the same building where everything had started. It was raining again. Victoria stood beneath the entrance lights and looked at me with a small smile. Then she stepped closer and said she finally understood what she had missed that night. It wasn't being carried. It was feeling that she didn't have to carry everything alone. She reached for my hand. And this time, I didn't carry her. We walked inside together. If this story touched your heart, please support the video by liking it, sharing it, and subscribing. Sometimes the person who saves us isn't the one who arrives with a grand gesture. Sometimes it's simply the person who stays when everyone else expects us to be strong. And before you go, comment, "Second chances are real," if you believe that even after heartbreak, a person deserves the courage to open their heart again. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive to erase the past. Sometimes it arrives quietly, takes your hand, and teaches you that the future can still be beautiful.